Monuments just don't appear. They're not accidents, and they're definitely not neutral. So, who decides what gets built? And why does that decision matter so much? Hi, my name's Bethany Belial, and this is The Statues Will Cry Out. Last time we talked about why statues matter. Today we're asking a different question. Who actually builds them? To answer that, we're going to look at three things: the process of how statues are made, the people and groups behind them, and why the decisions of them being made are always political. Building a statue is a long and deliberate process. It starts with an idea, but that idea has to be funded, approved, and supported. Proposals can originate from individual activists, but are often originated by groups such as legislative bodies, grassroots activist groups, and historical organizations such as the United Daughters of the Confederacy. Many monuments are built through private donations and institutions. Monuments are frequently partially or wholly funded by the state, especially when they are intended to serve as state speech. Historically, governments and private heritage organizations have often funded these projects in unison. When it comes to approving monuments, specialist bodies or historical commissions often review and recommend actions, while local government bodies often make the final decisions. Designing the statue requires social and political trade offs. Designers must choose how to visually display a person or event, what the figure is wearing, how it's posed, and what material it is made out of, all change the statue's symbolism. Choosing where a monument stands is also highly relevant, as location assigns political narratives to spaces and determines how the public will experience the work. Dedication ceremonies serve as mass communication that strengthens collective memory. Dedication speeches, such as the one for Silent Sam in 1913, explicitly use monuments to proclaim that white soldiers had saved the South for the Anglo-Saxon race. Every step in statue creation involves decisions regarding size, material, and placement that are rarely the result of consensus, but instead reflect the balance of power within a community. Every step involves decisions, and every decision shapes the message the statue will send at the end. So, who are the people behind these decisions? Governments use public art to promote legitimizing values like freedom and equality from the local, state, and national levels. Individuals and corporations often fund monuments that reflect their private interests or commemorate specific milestones. Advocacy groups are often the primary motivation for commemorative projects, using statues to shape collective identity. The United Daughters of the Confederacy was prolific in raising money and placing over 400 monuments between 1886 and 1912 to promote the Lost Cause ideology. Historical societies curate and evaluate historical figures for memorialization in accordance with the ideological priorities of the time. Ladies' memorial associations were instrumental in advocating for Confederate symbols throughout the South during the early Jim Crow years. Historically, many statues have been funded and promoted by organized groups with clear goals. Statue building is a deliberative act of persuasion aimed at shaping public understanding of the past. Groups like the United Daughters of the Confederacy engaged in public relations campaigns to raise funds and frame their version of history as truthful record of the Civil War. These campaigns often used ideographs, which are rhetorical terms like heritage, to call for collective commitment and guide behavior. The builders approve of physical design of a statue that communicates specific values, creating ideological messaging. Derogatory pedestalling uses elevation to declare a figure honorable while indirectly ranking their victims as inferior. Using narrative shaping, statues tell a story, often by selectively including or excluding details to serve a group's ideology. A statue of Samuel de Champlain in Ottawa originally included a native figure crouching submissively at his feet, implying a hierarchy of civilization. Statue building is not just commemoration, it's persuasion. Deciding to build a statue is a fundamentally political act because choosing who to memorialize is a deliberate choice about what values to promote in a public sphere. This process relies on several key mechanisms. The first is agenda setting, the process in which national governments and powerful actors strategically decide which historical figures, events, and themes are deemed legitimate and worthy of commemoration in the first place. It serves as a meaning of creating the symbolic infrastructure of a society. Second is framing, the strategy used to offer specific storyline or narrative continuality that guides public behavior and collective commitment. By framing a figure in a specific way, for instance, as a hero rather than a traitor, actors can naturalize a particular social construction of the past. Created through the interaction of agenda setting and framing, public memory is the interpretation of collective history that emerges from and reflects existing power structures. It is a process of mnemonic socialization in which elites teach the public what to remember and what to forget, thereby forging cohesive national identity. In Washington, D.C., the city's layout was shaped by the logic of a ceremonial city, in which city space is constricted into democratic public sphere through a visible memory system. The original design for the capital, known as the L'Enfant Plan, organized the city around grand avenue sightlines and monumental spaces to facilitate the collective recall of a national identity. In the Pierre Charles L'Enfant's 1791 manuscript plan for the city of Washington, he wrote, "The center of each square will admit of statues, columns, obelisks, to perpetuate not only the memory of such individuals, but also those whose usefulness hath rendered them worthy of general imitation, to invite the youth of succeeding generations to tread in the paths of those sages or heroes." The result was a city built for symbolism, making it a theater of memory where national history is acted out in symbolically loaded places. When a city approves of a statue, it's making a statement. This person and what they represent deserved a place in public space. Every statue is an argument about history, identity, and power. So, what did we learn? Statues don't just happen. They're built through a process shaped by money, institutions, and power. They're created by people with specific goals, and those goals shape messages we see in public space. So, here's our next question. If statues are built by people with power, what happens when that power changes? Next time, we'll look at why statues come down and what that really means.